My son's call came out of nowhere. "Where are you, Mom?" "At your sister-in-law Isabel's birthday party. Get out of there right now and take your grandson with you." "Why? Just do it. Fast." I ran, not understanding a thing, but when I got in the car, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The phone vibrated amidst the loud music. It was Leo. My son never called during family parties. He knew I hated answering my phone in public. This time, however, something about the insistent ringing made me pick up. "Where are you, Mom?" His voice was different, tense, almost a desperate whisper. "At Isabel's birthday party, of course. Aren't you coming?" I tried to sound natural, but my stomach was already in knots. "Get out of there right now and take Noah with you." My heart started racing. "Why? Leo, just do it, fast. Don't ask any questions. Don't talk to anyone. Find my son and leave. Now, Mom." He hung up. I stood frozen in the middle of the crowded room, a glass of juice in my hand, the pop music echoing off the walls. Around me, Isabel was laughing loudly, surrounded by friends, poured into a red dress that was a size too small. She always did love being the center of attention. My son-in-law, Julian, Clara's husband, was chatting animatedly with guests near the barbecue. Everything seemed normal. But Leo's voice had not been normal. I dropped the glass on the nearest table and began searching for Noah. My 7-year-old grandson was in the backyard playing with the other children, covered in dirt and blissfully happy. When he saw me, he ran over with that gap-toothed smile that always melted my heart. "Grandma, look at the toy car I got. It's beautiful, my love." I took his hand, holding it firmly. "We're going home now, okay? But the party. Grandma isn't feeling well. Let's go." Isabel intercepted me at the door, a practiced commercial smile plastered on her face. "Leaving already, Eleanor? The party has barely started. I have a headache." "It's an age thing. You know how it is." She raised an eyebrow, her expression making it clear she didn't believe a word I was saying. But she didn't insist. She never did when it came to me. After all, the less time I spent around, the better it was for her plans. I didn't know that yet, but I was about to find out. I held Noah's hand tightly as we left. He chattered on about the party, the sweets, and the 3-tiered cake, but I couldn't hear a thing over my own heart pounding in my ears. When I opened the car door, I saw it. A brown envelope on the passenger seat. Large. Thick. My name, Eleanor, was written across it in a firm hand. Noah climbed into the back and started playing with his new toy car. I just stood there, staring at the envelope as if it were a bomb. My hand was shaking when I finally picked it up. Inside were photos, lots of them. The first showed Isabel kissing a man who was not my son, outside a motel. The second showed the two of them entering an apartment holding hands. In the third, my stomach churned. The man was Julian, my son-in-law, my daughter, Clara's husband. A flash drive was taped to the envelope, along with a note in the same firm handwriting. "Watch everything before you do anything. Your son is trying to protect you. Trust him. A friend of the family." I sank into the driver's seat, my legs weak. Noah was humming quietly in the back, oblivious to the earthquake that had just shattered our lives. I started the car. As I drove through the city's illuminated streets with my grandson safe behind me, a single question hammered in my head. Did my son already know? For how long had he been suffering alone? And worse, what else was on this flash drive? If you've ever experienced a family betrayal, or if you know someone who has, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because this story is just getting started, and what comes next will leave you speechless. Let me tell you who I am before I continue, because what comes next will only make sense if you understand what I've built, brick by brick, sweat by sweat. My name is Eleanor. I'm 69 years old, and for 42 of those years, I was an architect. I wasn't the kind who just drew pretty blueprints in an air-conditioned office. No. I climbed scaffolding, supervised construction sites, argued with builders, and negotiated with suppliers. My late husband, Richard, used to say I had cement in my veins instead of blood. He died 9 years ago in a car accident. A truck swerved into his lane on a rainy night, and just like that, the love of my life was gone. He left behind 2 grown children, Leo, now 43, and Clara, 38, and a widow who had to learn to be strong when all she wanted to do was crumble. But I didn't crumble. I couldn't. I had 2 children who needed me. With the insurance money and the fruits of my own hard work, I bought 2 commercial properties downtown, well-located office spaces, perfect for clinics that were always rented out. Today, they bring in about $19,000 a month. It's not a fortune, but it's dignity. It's independence. It's the peace of mind that comes with knowing no one else controls my life. And then there's the house. Ah, this house. I designed it myself when I was 45, when I finally had the money to build my dream. 3 bedrooms, an integrated porch, a sunroom, and a wooden staircase that Richard stained with his own hands. It's worth about $1.3 million today, but to me, it's priceless. Every corner holds a memory. The kitchen tile I chose when I was pregnant with Clara, the living room window where Richard drank his coffee every morning, watching the sunrise, the room that became a playroom for Noah. It was in this house that I raised my children. It was here that I mourned my husband, and it is here that I intend to die, on my own time, in my own way. Leo married Isabel 8 years ago. From day one, something about her bothered me. It wasn't mother-in-law jealousy, no. It was instinct. The way she calculated every word. The way she appraised every object in my house with the eyes of an auctioneer. Always overly friendly when she needed something, and always absent when it wasn't in her interest. But my son loved her, and a year after the wedding, Noah was born. That little boy, with his big eyes and easy laugh, became my darling, my reason to wake up excited, even on the bad days. Clara, my youngest, married Julian 3 years ago. He was, or at least pretended to be, everything a mother could want for her daughter. Polite, hardworking, attentive. He was a bank manager who spoke well and dressed well. But in recent months, something had changed. Clara had lost too much weight. She'd grown quiet. She stopped visiting me alone, always arriving with him attached to her hip, controlling the conversation. Whenever I asked if everything was okay, she would force a faint smile and change the subject. I felt something was wrong, but I didn't know what. Now, with those photos in my lap and the flash drive burning in my pocket, I was about to find out. I got home with Noah already dozing in the back seat. I carried my grandson into the guest room, carefully taking off his sneakers so as not to wake him, and covered him with the dinosaur-themed blanket he loved. I kissed his warm forehead. "Sleep, my love. Grandma will take care of everything." But as I closed the door and walked to my office, the flash drive clutched in my palm. I wasn't sure if I could take care of anything. Everything I had built, the house, the assets, the family, was about to crack, and I couldn't even imagine how deep that crack would be. I sat in my office chair, the same chair where I had so often drawn up plans for other families to live happily. I turned on the computer, inserted the flash drive, and what I saw made me understand that Isabel and Julian were not just lovers. They were partners in a plan that had my name at its center. The computer screen lit up my face in the dim office. It was 11:47 p.m. The house was silent except for the low hum of the fan and my own ragged breathing. I clicked on the first file. It was a video recorded from inside a car, showing Isabel and Julian entering a motel on the highway, one of those places with a colorful facade and covered parking spots. The date in the bottom corner was from 6 months ago. I skipped to the next file, an audio recording. It was Isabel's voice, unmistakable with that shrill tone she got when she was excited. "Love, Leo is getting weaker every day. He almost fainted climbing the stairs yesterday. It's working." Julian's voice responded, calm and methodical. "Excellent. The more dependent, the better. Clara is at her breaking point, too. I increased her dose of anxiolytics. She doesn't even question it anymore." My hand flew to my mouth. I kept listening, my heart exploding in my chest. "And the old woman?" Isabel asked. I knew instantly that the old woman was me. She's sharp. "We need to be careful," Julian said, "but I have a doctor friend who can attest to senile dementia if necessary. At her age, no one will question it. Then we get her declared incompetent and take power of attorney over everything." They laughed. Both of them laughed, as if they were planning a vacation, not the complete destruction of a family. I paused the video and got up, walking to the window. I needed air. I needed to understand. Leo was being poisoned. Clara was being drugged, and I was to be declared insane. I went back to the computer. There was more. I opened a folder named Leo's Medicals. Inside were scanned documents, medical reports with altered results, a heart exam showing a severe arrhythmia and an imminent risk of a heart attack. But there was another file, the original, where everything was normal, perfectly healthy. My son was taking medication for a disease he didn't have. I did a quick search on the drugs. High-dose beta blockers. The side effects included extreme fatigue, dizziness, muscle weakness, and psychological dependence. Isabel was slowly killing my son, and he didn't even suspect a thing. I kept going. More audio, more videos. One showed Julian entering his and Clara's apartment during the day, when she was supposed to be at work. It was filmed from a distance, probably by the investigator Leo had hired. Julian was carrying a pharmacy bag. Another audio file, this one more recent, from 2 weeks ago. Her will must be in that office drawer. Everyone has one, especially old people. Once we get her to give one of us power of attorney, the rest is easy. And Leo? Isabel's anxious voice. "When he dies of a heart attack, you get everything. A young widow with a small child. The whole family will feel sorry for you. No one will question a thing. And what if the kid isn't even his? Even better. Fewer complications with the inheritance." I closed my eyes, feeling bile rise in my throat. Noah. My little grandson sleeping innocently in the next room, oblivious to the fact that his own mother questioned his existence as if he were just an accounting problem. I opened the last file. It was a PDF document, a detailed plan likely written by the methodical Julian. Project stages. 1. Weaken Leo physically and psychologically. 2. Isolate Clara from family contact. 3. Gain Eleanor's trust or prove mental incapacity. In progress. 4. Obtain power of attorney or legal guardianship. 5. Transfer commercial properties. 6. Sell properties. 7. Divide proceeds. 60% Julian, 40% Isabel. Below was a scanned, handwritten line. Estimated completion, 6 months. Estimated total asset value, $2.5 million. They had calculated it. They had put a price on it. They had divided my entire life into a spreadsheet. I turned off the computer and sat there in the dark, listening to my own breathing. I thought of Richard, of what he would say. I remembered him building the staircase in this house, hammering each nail, sweating, smiling at me. "Eleanor," he'd said, "a structure only stands if the foundation is solid. Never forget that." The foundation of my family was cracked, but it hadn't crumbled yet, because they had made one mistake. They underestimated the architect, and every good architect knows that before you build, you must have the complete project in your head, every pillar, every beam, every point of support. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Leo. "Get here now, we have a lot to talk about." And "Son, thank you for protecting me." The reply came in seconds. "On my way. I couldn't tell you before. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry for everything." I looked at the flash drive on the desk. They wanted to tear me down, but I was going to show them what happens when you mess with the wrong foundation. Leo arrived half an hour later. I heard his car park in front of the house, the door slamming harder than usual, his quick steps on the stone path in the garden. When I opened the door, I almost didn't recognize him. My son, that 6'1" man who had always been so strong, who played soccer on weekends and carried Noah on his back without tiring, was unrecognizable. He was too thin, with deep, dark circles under his eyes. His shoulders were slumped as if he were carrying the weight of the world. But the worst part was his eyes. They held a mixture of shame, pain, and something I had never seen in him before: fear. "Mom!" His voice broke. I pulled him inside and hugged him. He trembled in my arms, a grown man shaking like a frightened child. "Sit down. I'll make some tea." "I don't want tea, Mom. I want you to forgive me." I stopped in the middle of the living room. "Forgive you for what, Leo? For being blind, for being stupid, for putting you and Clara in danger." We sat on the sofa where I had taught him to tie his shoes, where he had told me he was going to be a father, where we had cried together when Richard died. Leo took a deep breath and began. "I found out 3 weeks ago. I'd been feeling sick for months. Tiredness, dizziness, a racing heart. Isabel insisted I see a doctor, an excellent cardiologist she knew. The guy terrified me, Mom. He said I had severe arrhythmia, that I could die at any moment if I didn't take the medication." He ran a hand over his exhausted face. "I started the medication, but instead of getting better, I got worse. I couldn't work properly. I slept all the time and had nightmares. Isabel was always on top of me, controlling the pill schedule, saying it was for my own protection." My stomach tightened. "And what made you suspicious?" "A credit card bill." A statement came with a charge from a motel on the interstate. I confronted Isabel. She said it was a bank error, that she'd never been there. But I saw it in her eyes, Mom. She was lying. Leo got up and walked to the window, his hands in his pockets. I called Thomas. Remember him? My friend from engineering school. He works as a private investigator now. I asked for total discretion, and he delivered. Everything. Photos, videos, audio. It was worse than I imagined. Julian, I could barely speak the name. My brother-in-law, my sister's husband. They've been together for at least 8 months. But it's not just an affair, Mom. He turned to me, tears streaming down his face. "They're killing me. Literally. Thomas got access to my original test results through a contact at the lab. My heart is perfect. It always has been." I stood up and hugged my son again. This time, I was the one who trembled. "Isabel doctored the results," he continued, his voice choked with emotion. "Her and that doctor, who I later found out is a childhood friend of Julian's. The pills I'm taking are real, but for a disease I don't have. They're poisoning me slowly." My God, Leo. "There's more, Mom." He pulled away, wiping his face with the back of his hand. "Noah. When he was born, Isabel didn't want to do the full blood typing test. She said it was nonsense, that I was being insecure. We never talked about it again. But I'm almost certain he's not my biological son." "Leo, that doesn't matter." "It does, Mom. Not because I would ever stop loving that boy. I would die for him, blood or not. But it matters because Isabel used it. She trapped me with a child that might not even be mine, just to get access to who I am, to what I have, to what you built." He sat down again, defeated. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but I was scared. Scared I was wrong, that I'd destroy the family over paranoia. So I asked Thomas to dig deeper. And that's when he discovered their plans. The conversations about you, about Clara, about letting me die." A heavy silence fell in the room. "Why today?" I asked. "Why did you call me at the party today, specifically?" "Because Thomas sent me a message an hour before. He was monitoring their conversations. Isabel mentioned to Julian that she was going to prepare the ground at the party, that she was going to watch you, ask you questions, and see where you kept important documents. She was going to use you, Mom. She was going to turn that party into a reconnaissance mission." My jaw tightened. And the envelope in the car? That was Thomas. We agreed that if anything happened, he would deliver the proof directly to you. I couldn't risk having it in the house. Isabel goes through everything of mine. Leo took my hands, squeezing them tightly. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry for bringing this snake into our family. I'm sorry for being weak, for not seeing it sooner. I'm sorry for putting you in danger." I looked into my son's eyes, at this broken man, poisoned and betrayed in the worst possible way, and I felt something burn inside me. It wasn't just anger, it was purpose. Leo listened to me carefully. My voice came out firm and sharp. You are not to blame. You weren't weak. You were human. You trusted someone you loved. That's not a flaw. It's decency. I squeezed his hands back. But now, we're going to do things differently. We are going to protect this family. We're going to protect Clara, Noah, and you. And we are going to show those two what happens when they mess with the wrong family. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Hello, Isabel. Darling, sorry I had to run out of your party. That dizziness came back, you know how it is. Age is catching up, she replied with false concern. Of course, Eleanor. The important thing is that you're okay. Actually, you should get some tests done. I have a contact for an excellent doctor. I bet she did. Maybe. But look, to make it up to you, how about a dinner here at my house on Saturday? It's been a while since I've had everyone together. A brief silence on the other end. Then, I'd love to. I'll bring dessert. Of course she would. She never arrived empty-handed, always calculating, always playing the part of the helpful one. I called Clara next. My daughter answered with that slurry, tired voice that broke my heart. Mom? Did something happen? Nothing, my love. I just miss you. Come for dinner on Saturday? It'll just be family. I have to check with Julian. Clara, I hardened my tone. You're an adult. You don't need to ask for permission to visit your mother. Another silence. Then, almost a whisper, Okay, Mom, we'll be there. I hung up with a heavy heart. My youngest was slowly disappearing, swallowed by pills and manipulation. But I was going to bring her back, even if it was the last thing I did. Saturday arrived with a clear sky and a mild temperature, a typical late afternoon where everything seems too calm. I set the dining room table, the solid wood one Richard bought for our 20th anniversary. I used the embroidered tablecloth my mother gave me, and the porcelain dishes I only used for special occasions. I cooked lasagna, the recipe my kids had loved since they were little. I prepared a salad, rice, and toasted cassava flour. I made everything impeccable because presentation matters, and I wanted this dinner to seem normal, friendly, familiar. But under the table, in my apron pocket, my phone was connected to a recorder, and on the shelf behind me, hidden between architecture books, was a micro camera that Leo had installed the day before. Everything would be recorded. Everything would be documented. At 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. Isabel and Leo arrived first. She brought a dish of tiramisu, all smiles, wearing a floral dress that was a bit too tight for the occasion. Leo was looking better. He had stopped taking the pills 3 days ago, under the supervision of a real doctor we had consulted in secret. He was already getting his color back. That smells wonderful, mother-in-law. Isabel hugged me with that fake enthusiasm, her cloying perfume invading my nostrils. Noah ran to me, hugging my waist. Grandma, can I have 2 pieces of lasagna? You can, my prince. I kissed the top of his head, his hair smelling of kids' shampoo. 15 minutes later, Clara and Julian arrived. My daughter looked even worse than I had imagined. Emaciated, with lifeless skin and glazed eyes, she wore a loose gray blouse that swallowed her whole. She looked like a ghost of the vibrant girl she once was. Julian, on the other hand, was impeccable in a light blue dress shirt, linen pants, and polished shoes. He smiled broadly, confident, like someone with nothing to fear. Eleanor. What an honor this invitation is. He kissed my cheek with rehearsed familiarity. The house looks even more beautiful. What's it worth on the market today? Around 1.5 million? I swallowed my anger and smiled. I have no idea, Julian. I don't plan on selling. Of course. But it's always good to know your net worth. Financial planning and all that. Isabel chimed in, as if reading from a script. Actually, Eleanor, have you ever thought about simplifying your life? I mean, living alone in this huge house with these stairs. What if you fall? At our age, a broken bone is dangerous. I served wine, my hand steady, my voice calm. Age is just a number, Isabel. I still go up and down these stairs 10 times a day without any problem. Julian laughed, that corporate laugh of someone who closes deals. But prevention is never a bad thing, mother-in-law. I know of some excellent assisted living residences. You deserve a rest. Let us take care of the worries. Let us take care of your money, he meant. We sat at the table, Noah between me and Leo. Clara sat next to Julian, who immediately placed a hand on hers, a gesture that looked like affection but was pure control. I served the lasagna. Everyone praised it. Isabel ate delicately, her eyes always scanning the corners of the house, evaluating, calculating. The conversation flowed superficially about work, the weather, and silly news, but the tension was palpable, at least for those who knew what was really happening. It was then that Isabel made her move. Eleanor, is that violet pot in your office old? I saw it when I passed by the other day. It's a beautiful match with the wooden drawer underneath. My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression neutral. It was my mother's. I like flowers that require care. And the drawer? She insisted, too casually. It looks like it has a secret, the kind that holds important things. Leo coughed, changing the subject. Mom, this cassava flour is just like Grandma used to make. Perfect. But the damage was done. Isabel had confirmed what I suspected. She'd already been in my office. She'd seen the drawer, and she probably already knew what was inside, or rather, what she thought was inside. Julian seized the opening. Speaking of important things, mother-in-law, documentation, that sort of thing. Do you have everything organized? A will? Powers of attorney? Because if you need help, I work at the bank. I can recommend trustworthy people. I looked at him. I really looked at him, and I saw the poorly disguised greed behind that toothpaste smile. I looked at Isabel, holding her breath, waiting for my answer. I looked at Clara, drugged and absent, being used. I looked at Leo, my poisoned son, fighting to maintain his composure. And I looked at Noah, innocent and smeared with tomato sauce. I smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. Funny you should mention that, Julian, because I was just thinking about organizing a few things. After all, as Isabel so rightly said, at my age, you never know. Isabel's face lit up. See? I told you, love. But I paused, a long pause, and took a sip of wine. I have to think carefully about who deserves what, because trust these days is a rare commodity. Julian's smile faltered, just for a second, but it faltered. And there's something else. I looked directly into Isabel's eyes. Sometimes fantasies reveal truths. You said that to Noah yourself the other day, remember? Well then, I think it's time for some truths to come to light. The atmosphere at the table shifted. It became heavy, dense, and it was only the beginning. The Monday after the dinner, I put the first stage of our plan into action. A plan that I, Leo, and my lawyer, Helen Davis, had spent hours drawing up. Helen had been my lawyer for 15 years, a woman of 55 with short gray hair, red-framed glasses, and zero patience for nonsense. She had helped me with the estate when Richard died, with the commercial property contracts, with everything involving my assets. Now she was going to help me protect those assets from two snakes. We met at a discreet cafe downtown, me, Leo, and Helen, at a table in the corner, far from prying ears. Eleanor, Helen began, taking a black folder from her bag, what you're telling me is serious, very serious. We have grounds for a criminal case, but we need to act intelligently. If they get suspicious, they could get rid of evidence, flee, and complicate everything. I know. That's why I need your help to do this the right way. She opened the folder. Inside was a printed document. This is your real will, the one that truly matters. 40% of the assets to Leo, 40% to Clara, 15% to Noah in a trust until he's 18, and 5% to that children's charity you support. I nodded. That was exactly what I wanted. Isabel and Julian are explicitly excluded with an unworthiness clause, meaning even if they try to contest it, they get nothing. She adjusted her glasses. This document stays with me, registered at the notary, ironclad. No one besides the three of us knows about it. And the other one? I asked. Helen gave a thin smile. The fake one? That's the bait. She took out another document, identical in format to the first, but with completely different content. In this one, you leave 70% of your assets to Leo and Isabel for their dedication in caring for me in recent years. The rest is divided between Clara and Charities. It looks real. It even has a notarized signature. A forgery, obviously, but they won't check that, Leo said, stirring his coffee nervously. And what if they try to use this legally? They won't be able to, Helen said, her tone categorical. First, because it's fake. Second, because the real will is registered with an earlier date. And third, because when this all blows up, they'll be facing criminal charges. They'll have no moral standing to contest anything. I took a deep breath. So we plant the fake one where Isabel can find it. Exactly, Helen said, closing the folder. But it has to be natural. She needs to think she discovered it on her own, that she was clever. People like that love to feel smart. I went home with the fake will in my purse, burning like a hot coal. That very afternoon, I started preparing the ground. I called Mrs. Gable, my 72-year-old neighbor, a lovely lady with a tongue as loose as an uncontrolled faucet. If you wanted to spread information in the neighborhood, you just had to tell her as a secret. Mrs. Gable, dear, can I ask you a favor? Could you come over for coffee tomorrow? The next day, I welcomed my neighbor with corn cake and fresh coffee. I let the conversation flow naturally about health, family, and trivialities, until at the right moment, I dropped it. You know, Mrs. Gable, I'm organizing some documents. Will stuff, estate planning, at our age, right? You never know. Her eyes lit up. Oh, Eleanor, I did mine last year. It's so important. And you have so much to organize. I do. My children deserve to have things made easy when I'm no longer here. I sighed dramatically, especially Leo, poor thing. With that heart problem of his, I need to make sure he and Isabel will be all right. Mrs. Gable almost jumped out of her chair. A heart problem? I had no idea. Oh, don't mention it to anyone, will you? He doesn't like people talking about it. But it's serious. Severe arrhythmia. He's on controlled medication. Isabel takes such good care of him. Done. The seed was planted. In 2 days, the entire neighborhood would know that Leo was sick and that I was organizing my inheritance. It was exactly what I wanted. 2 days later, I started phase 2, leaving the fake document in an obvious secret place. I put the will inside a stapled, official-looking manila folder and stored it in the second drawer of my office desk, the antique wooden one with a small lock. Then I hid the key in the violet pot right above it, stuck in the soil, a ridiculously predictable hiding spot. Anyone looking would find it in 2 minutes. Now all I needed was to get Isabel to go looking. On Thursday, she called, just as I knew she would. Eleanor, how are you? I was missing you. Can I stop by for a chat? Just us girls. I smiled into the phone. Of course, dear. Come on over. Isabel arrived in the mid-afternoon, all dressed up in tight jeans, a low-cut top, and blow-dried hair. She brought a bag of bread from the expensive bakery downtown. I brought some fresh bread. I know you love it. I welcomed her into the living room. The coffee was ready, the table set, a perfect depiction of a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law in harmony. We made small talk. She asked how Leo was doing. I said he was still weak, tired. She put on a concerned face. Eleanor, can I be honest with you? Of course, dear. I've noticed Leo has been a bit strange with me. Distant. Do you think he's hiding something? I even wondered, is there another woman? I feigned shock, my hand flying to my chest. My goodness, Isabel. You think so? I don't know, but I've seen messages on his phone, things he deletes quickly. I played up the concern, putting a hand to my forehead. Oh, my dear, this is making me so distressed. I'm even feeling a bit dizzy. Are you okay? Isabel stood up, overly solicitous. I just need my pills. They're in the office, in the drawer. Could you get them for me? Sorry to bother you. Not at all. Where are they? The second drawer of the desk. The key is... Let me remember. I think I left it in the violet pot. Take a look there. Isabel shot out of the room. I stayed in the living room, counting the seconds, my heart pounding. On the outside, I was a fragile woman needing help. On the inside, I was a predator waiting for the prey to fall into the trap. She took exactly 4 minutes. When she returned, she was radiant, her eyes shining, carrying a random pill bottle from the drawer. Found it, Eleanor. Wow, what a beautiful drawer. And what a lovely pot, too. A perfect match. Thank you, dear. My mother always said that flowers and antique furniture should have a conversation. She stayed for another 15 minutes chatting away before saying goodbye with a tight hug and exaggerated kisses. As soon as I closed the door, I ran to the office. The drawer was exactly as I had left it. The will, too. But my phone, which I had intentionally left on the office desk with the front camera recording, had captured everything. I transferred the video to my computer and watched it in slow motion. Isabel opening the drawer, rummaging through papers, finding the will. Her eyes widened. She took her phone out of her pocket, photographed every page, and smiled. The smile of someone who has just won the lottery. Except the ticket was fake, and the prize would be very different from what she imagined. Over the next 10 days, I transformed into an award-worthy actress. I started forgetting things on purpose. I'd call Leo asking if he'd had lunch right after he'd left my house. I'd repeat stories I'd already told. I'd leave my car keys in unusual places. Small, subtle things, but enough. And Isabel was always around to notice. Oh, Eleanor, are you okay? You've told me that story 3 times today. Really? I'd feign confusion. It must be fatigue. I've been sleeping poorly. She would exchange glances with Leo, glances that said, "It's starting. She's becoming senile." Leo played the part of the worried son well. "Mom, I think we should schedule an appointment with a neurologist, just as a precaution. No need, son. It's just old age." But Isabel was already excited. She saw the opportunity approaching. Julian also intensified his efforts, showing up more often, always with Clara in tow. My daughter was fading more with each visit, a zombie controlled by medication. "Eleanor," he'd say, with that rehearsed friendliness, I had a thought. "How about I help you manage the rent for your commercial properties? I work in wealth management at the bank. I can optimize the contracts, increase your returns. It's my contribution to the family. How kind, Julian. I'll think about it. I could even set up a simple power of attorney just to make things easier. You wouldn't have to worry about the bureaucracy." I smiled sweetly, innocently. "I'll talk to my lawyer." He insisted 2 more times, always with Clara by his side, nodding mechanically like a broken doll. Each of their visits tore me apart inside, but I held on. I waited, because timing was everything. In the second week, I created the perfect moment. It was a cloudy Friday. I called Isabel early in the morning, my voice trembling and frightened. "Isabel, can you come over? I'm confused. I think I've lost some important documents." "Of course, mother-in-law, I'm on my way." She arrived in 20 minutes, a personal record, wearing gym clothes as if she'd rushed from some commitment to rescue me. "What happened, Eleanor?" I sat in the living room, my hands shaking on purpose. "I can't find that paper from the bank, you know? The one with the account details for the rent? I've looked everywhere. Calm down. We'll look together." "Where do you normally keep those things?" "In the office, but..." "Oh, Isabel, my head is so muddled lately. Sometimes I forget where I put things." She placed a hand on my shoulder, falsely maternal. "You need help, you know? You can't be alone like this. What if something happens and no one is around?" "You think so?" "I do. In fact..." She hesitated, calculating. "Have you thought about giving power of attorney to someone you trust? To Leo, for example. or to me. That way, if you have a lapse in memory, we can handle things without worrying you. There it was, the move I'd been waiting for. I pretended to consider it. That makes sense. But I don't know, I'm afraid of losing control of my things. It wouldn't be losing control, it would be having help. You'd still decide everything, just with support. I pretended to think some more. Let me talk to my lawyer. I'll schedule a meeting to better understand how it works. Her eyes lit up. Great idea. Do you want me to go with you? I can help clarify any doubts. That would be nice. Thank you, dear. I knew what she was thinking. She would make sure the document was broad, granting total control. Later that night, Leo played me a recording of Isabel on the phone with Julian. She's biting. She's going to talk to her lawyer about the power of attorney. I'll make sure to be there. And Leo? He's getting weaker every day. He almost fainted on the stairs at home the other day. It's a matter of time. When it happens, I'll get his share of the will and we'll speed up the rest. Perfect. After we have the power of attorney, we sell her properties, transfer the money, and disappear. 3 months tops. 3 months and we're free. Love, free and rich. They laughed. When Leo played me the recording, I felt a hatred so pure it scared me. But it was that hatred that gave me clarity. The following Monday, I scheduled a meeting with Helen Davis, but not at her office. We arranged to meet at a discreet notary's office away from downtown where we had allies. I told Isabel, "Dear, I've scheduled a meeting with my lawyer to clarify this power of attorney business. Can you still come with me?" "Of course." "What time?" 10 in the morning, at the Expedited Notary on Palm Street. She wrote it all down. On the agreed day, we arrived together. Isabel was polished and elegant, playing the part of the devoted daughter-in-law. Helen received us professionally. "Mrs. Miller, who would you like to grant power of attorney to?" I looked at Isabel. She smiled encouragingly. "To my son, Leo, to help him manage my affairs." Isabel's smile faltered slightly. "And maybe to me as well. After all, I am his wife. It would be more practical for both of us to have it." Helen pretended to consider. "It's possible. But you need to be sure, Mrs. Miller. A power of attorney grants broad powers. The person can move accounts, sell properties, and sign contracts in your name." I put on a worried expression. "Is it that much responsibility?" Isabel jumped in. "But it's to make your life easier. Imagine having to go to the bank, sign papers, and deal with bureaucracy. We do all that, and you can relax." Helen maintained a neutral expression. "I'll prepare a draft. But first, I need a few documents. Mrs. Miller, did you bring your updated certificates?" "I forgot." I feigned sudden recollection. "Oh my, did I bring them?" Isabel let out a quiet, irritated huff. "No problem, we can get them and come back another day." "Great," Helen agreed. "Next week then. Bring all the documentation and we'll finalize it." We left the notary's office. Isabel was impatient but controlled herself. "Eleanor, you can't forget the documents next week, okay? It's important. I'll make a note, dear. I promise." But the meeting next week never happened, because 2 days later, on a Wednesday night, Isabel and Julian would receive a visit that would change everything. A visit they weren't expecting, a visit I had spent weeks planning. And finally, it was time to bring their house of cards down, card by card, lie by lie, poison by poison. It was early Thursday morning when my intercom rang. 1:30 a.m., that time of night when the silence is so heavy that any sound seems like a crash. I got up, startled, my heart racing. Who could it be at this hour? I answered the intercom, my voice hoarse with sleep. "Hello?" "Mom, it's me." Clara's voice came out shaky, desperate. "Please, let me in." I ran to the gate, and what I saw shattered me. My daughter was barefoot, her feet dirty with soil and asphalt. She was wearing a thin, white, wrinkled nightgown. Her hair was disheveled. Mascara streaked down her face. She was trembling, and I didn't know if it was from the cold or from panic. "My God, Clara." I pulled her inside, quickly locking the gate. "What happened?" She collapsed into my arms, literally. Her legs gave out, and I had to hold her tightly to keep her from falling. I brought my daughter into the house, onto the living room sofa. I covered her with a blanket and turned on the heater. She was shaking convulsively, her gaze lost, her breathing shallow. "Clara, look at me. Are you hurt? Did he hit you?" She shook her head. "No, he didn't hit me. But Mom," her voice broke into a sob. "I can't take it anymore. I can't pretend everything is okay anymore." I sat beside her and held her cold hands. "Tell me, from the beginning." And she told me. Between tears, pauses, and tremors, my daughter poured out 6 months of hell. "I found out a while ago, Mom. His messages with Isabel. I found them by accident on his laptop in a file he left open. Screenshots of conversations, photos, plans." My stomach twisted. "You knew?" I knew, but I couldn't do anything. Because the next day, Julian realized I had seen them. And then the real nightmare began. Clara wiped her face with the back of her hand. "He took me to a doctor, a friend of his, a Dr. Finch. He said I was having an anxiety crisis, that it was work stress, hormonal problems. The doctor prescribed me tranquilizers, anxiolytics, and antidepressants in high doses. Clara. I took them at first because I really was unwell, but then I realized that the more I took, the more confused I became. I forgot things, slept too much, and I couldn't think straight. And Julian hovered over me, controlling my pill schedule, my phone, and my visits. He isolated me from my work, telling my clients I was on medical leave. She took a deep breath, fighting to control her tears. One day, I overheard him on the phone with Isabel, saying he was keeping me under control, that I had become a resolved problem, that soon I'd be so drugged I wouldn't even notice when they transferred my assets to him. My rage rose like lava. That's when I started pretending, Mom. I'd pretend to take the pills in front of him, hide them under my tongue, and spit them out in the toilet later. I had to stay lucid. I had to gather evidence. What evidence? Clara reached into her nightgown pocket and pulled out a tiny red flash drive. Everything. Recordings of when he threatened me. Of when he said that if I told anyone, he'd make everyone believe I was crazy. That he'd have me committed. That he'd convince you that your daughter had a breakdown and needed forced psychiatric treatment. My jaw locked. And there's more, Mom. Much more. She held my hand tightly. Julian has debts. Huge debts from gambling, online betting, underground casinos. He's lost over $350,000 in the last 2 years. Money from the bank where he works. My God. He embezzled funds from corporate accounts, Mom, manipulated documents, forged signatures. He's being investigated internally, but they don't know it was him yet. That's why he needs the inheritance so urgently, to pay off the debts before they find out and he goes to prison. Clara stood up, walked to the window, and hugged herself. And it gets even worse. He tried to use my name to get a loan, using your house as collateral, Mom. My blood ran cold. What? He forged my power of attorney, falsified my signature. He went to a finance company and tried to use your property as collateral for a $500,000 loan. But he couldn't, because the property is solely in your name, with no link to me as an advance heir. The finance manager thought it was strange and asked for additional documentation. That's when their plan failed. I remained silent, processing the depth of the rottenness. That's why they need the power of attorney, Mom, to get legal access to your assets, to sell, transfer, and mortgage, all legally, with your signature, even a forged one. Clara returned to the sofa, exhausted. Tonight, Julian came home different, aggressive. He said you were going to sign the power of attorney next week, and that things would finally be resolved. He said I should be well-behaved and medicated until it was all over. That afterwards, he was thinking of checking me into a rest spa for my recovery. He was going to have you committed. He was. And I knew in that moment that if I stayed one more day in that house, I would disappear, literally. I'd become a madwoman locked up somewhere, while he and Isabel destroyed our family. She looked at me, her red eyes now firm. So I waited for him to fall asleep. I grabbed my flash drive, which was hidden inside the lining of a cushion, and I ran, barefoot, I ran through the deserted streets until I got here. Because you're the only person who can stop this, Mom. I stood up and hugged my daughter, tightly, hard, like I hadn't since she was a child. No one is going to commit you. No one is going to control you. It's over, Clara. It's over. She cried on my shoulder, a deep sob from someone who finally allows herself to break down because she has found solid ground. When she calmed down, I went to my office and came back with my own flash drive, the one Leo had given me with the evidence against Isabel and Julian. I placed both flash drives side by side on the coffee table. Honey, your brother has also been gathering evidence. He's known everything for months. And I know too. We've been planning their downfall for weeks. Clara looked at me, incredulous. You knew? Since when? Since the day of Isabel's party, when Leo called and got me out of there, when I found an envelope in my car. I told her everything, the fake will, the feigned senility, the plan with the lawyer, every strategically placed piece. When I finished, Clara was speechless. Mom, you're an architect, my dear, and every good architect knows that before you build something new, you have to demolish the rotten structure. She laughed. For the first time in months, my daughter laughed. And now? She asked. I looked at her, at that woman who was broken but not destroyed, drugged but lucid, betrayed but not defeated. Now we move up the timeline, because if Julian realizes you've fled, he'll try to advance his plans, and we can't let that happen. I picked up my phone. I called Leo. It was 3:50 a.m., but he answered on the second ring. He was already expecting trouble. Mom, come over, now. Your sister is here, and we're changing the strategy. On my way. I hung up and looked at my two children, the two I had brought into this world, the two I had nursed, the two I had protected my whole life. And now, I was going to protect them again. Only this time, the protection would come with justice. Harsh, implacable justice. The kind that leaves a scar. Leo arrived 15 minutes later. He came through the door still in slippers, his hair a mess, his t-shirt on inside out. But his eyes were wide awake, alert, and ready. When he saw Clara on the sofa covered with a blanket, her face swollen from crying, he froze. Clara. Hi, bro. Her voice was weak, but she tried to smile. Leo crossed the room in 3 strides and hugged his sister. They stayed like that for long seconds. 2 siblings who had always been close, now united by the same pain, the same betrayal. When they separated, the 3 of us sat at the kitchen table. Freshly brewed coffee and buttered bread that no one ate. The tension was palpable. Mom, what happened? Leo asked. I explained everything. Clara's escape, the revelations, Julian's debts, the attempt to use my house as collateral. Leo turned pale. He tried to mortgage Mom's house. He tried. But he failed because the bureaucracy is more complex than he imagined. For now. So he's desperate, Leo concluded. Desperate and dangerous. Exactly. I looked at my 2 children. That's why we can't wait any longer. We have all the proof. We have the audio, the videos, the documents. It's time to act. Clara took a deep breath. How? I smiled, the smile that Richard used to call my demolition mode. With a dinner, here, tomorrow night. Clara, Leo said, his voice soft, you won't have to pretend in front of him ever again. I held my daughter's hand. Trust me. She nodded, still unsure. Leo crossed his arms. So what's the plan? I spent the next hour detailing every step, every line, every moment. We rehearsed how it would go, who would say what, and how we would reveal the evidence. By the time the sun started to rise through the kitchen window, the 3 of us were ready. On Friday morning, I called Isabel, my voice bright and cheerful. Isabel, darling, how about a dinner here tonight? I want to get the whole family together. I have some important news to share. A pause on the other end. News? Yes. About the decisions I've made. I think it's fair for everyone to find out at the same time, don't you? Another pause. Then, of course, Eleanor. We'll be there. What time? 8 o'clock. Nothing formal, just family. Perfect. But what about Clara? Is she coming? She is. She already confirmed. I lied naturally. Her and Julian. Oh, great then. The relief in her voice was palpable. She didn't know yet that Clara had fled. Julian must have been hiding it, out of shame or out of fear. In the afternoon, Clara took a shower. She put on some of my clothes, beige linen pants and a simple white blouse. She combed her hair and put on a touch of pale lipstick. When she looked at herself in the mirror, something shifted in her face. "I feel like I'm back," she murmured. "You never left, my dear. You were just hidden under all that poison." Leo spent the afternoon setting up the technology. He installed a retractable screen in the dining room, connected his laptop to the large TV, and tested the audio and video files, making sure everything would work perfectly at the right moment. And I cooked. I made the best rice of my life, cassava flour with bacon and raisins, just how Richard loved it, perfectly grilled steak, a colorful salad, and passion fruit mousse for dessert, a family recipe. If this was to be our last supper together, it would be a memorable one. At 8 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Isabel and Leo arrived first. She was stunning in a tight emerald green dress, high heels, and flawless makeup. Leo stood beside her, quiet and serious. "Eleanor, that smells amazing." Isabel kissed me, her expensive perfume filling the air. Noah didn't come. They had left him with his other grandmother, Isabel's mother. Better that way. A child didn't need to see what was about to happen. 15 minutes later, Julian arrived, alone. He walked into the living room and froze when he saw Clara sitting on the sofa, calm, looking directly at him. "Clara? When did you leave the house? Last night, or did you not notice?" Her voice was firm, controlled. He turned pale but tried to cover it up. "Love, I was looking for you. I was worried. Why didn't you tell me you were coming here? Because I didn't want to. Simple as that. Direct." Isabel and Julian exchanged quick, nervous glances. "Well," I interrupted, "now that we're all here, shall we have dinner?" We sat at the table, the same solid wood table where we had celebrated birthdays, Christmases, victories, and losses. Tonight, it would be the stage for the truth. I served the food. Everyone ate in tense silence, the clatter of cutlery on plates and forced chewing the only sounds. No one was really tasting anything. Isabel tried to lighten the mood. "So, Eleanor, what's the news?" I finished chewing and wiped my mouth with my napkin. I looked around the table. "I've decided to organize my life. After all, as you've both so often reminded me, at my age, you never know, right?" She perked up. "And how did you organize it?" "Well, I'll start with something important." I stood up and walked to the head of the table. "I've decided to issue a definitive power of attorney for my commercial properties, the ones that bring in $19,000 a month." Julian leaned forward, attentive. "The power of attorney," I continued, "will be in the name of a person of my complete trust, someone who will manage, care for, and ensure everything is done correctly." Isabel almost stood up from her chair in anticipation. A dramatic pause. "That person is my daughter, Clara." Deadly silence. Isabel blinked, processing. "Clara? But I thought—" "You thought what, Isabel?" My voice was as sharp as a blade. Julian choked on his wine. "Eleanor, don't you think it would be better to have someone with more financial management experience? Like someone who works in the market? Like you, for example. I could help, yes. How kind." I smiled, but I prefer someone who doesn't have $350,000 in gambling debts. The wine glass slipped from Julian's hand. It fell onto the table, spilling red liquid like blood on the white tablecloth. "What? Who told you that?" "Your creditors. The online casino records. The suspicious bank transfers. Should I continue?" He turned white as chalk. Isabel tried to intervene. "Eleanor, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I looked at her. Like the misunderstanding of you sleeping with my son-in-law for the past 8 months? She froze, her mouth open, speechless. Leo stood up and picked up the remote. The TV lit up. Let me clear up all the misunderstandings at once. The first image that appeared on the screen was of Isabel and Julian entering a motel. The date and time were in the bottom corner, 6 months ago. Isabel shot up from her chair. This is an invasion of privacy. Sit down. My voice was so cold she obeyed automatically. Leo fast-forwarded the video. Now it was audio, Isabel's voice echoing through the room. Love, Leo is getting weaker every day. He almost fainted climbing the stairs yesterday. It's working. Leo paused it and looked at Isabel. It's working. What, Isabel? Poisoning me? She opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. He continued the audio. Julian's voice. Excellent. The more dependent, the better. Clara is at her breaking point, too. I increased her dose of anxiolytics. Clara stood up slowly, her hands on the table. She stared at Julian with an intensity I'd never seen in her. You drugged me. For months. You isolated me. You turned me into a zombie. You almost had me committed. Her voice trembled, but with rage, not fear. All to get my money. Clara, love, it's not like that. Don't call me love, she screamed. For the first time in years, my daughter screamed. You don't know what love is. You only know how to use, manipulate, and destroy. Leo played another file. The project spreadsheet appeared on the screen with all the stages, the percentages, the estimated value of $2.5 million. You made a spreadsheet, Leo said, his voice controlled but heavy with pain. You calculated how much it's worth to destroy a family. You divided the percentages. 60% for you, Julian. 40% for you, Isabel. He turned to his wife. You poisoned me. You faked my medical exams. You made me believe I was going to die. All for what? To get an inheritance? To run away with my brother-in-law? Isabel started to cry, tears of desperation, not remorse. Leo, we can talk, we can fix this. Fix this? He laughed, a bitter sound. You wanted to see me dead, Isabel. Dead. To get everything. And you thought no one would find out. I displayed another document on the screen, the loan application using my house as collateral, with Clara's forged signature. Julian tried to mortgage my house, I said, my voice firm. He forged documents. He committed a federal crime. And he thought he'd get away with it because he works at a bank and understands paperwork. Julian stood up, desperate. Eleanor, I can explain. They were debts that got out of control. I was trying to fix it. Fix it at the expense of my family? By drugging my daughter? By planning to have me declared insane to get legal guardianship? He turned even paler. How did you... I know everything, Julian. Everything. Your doctor friend, Dr. Finch, who was going to attest to my senile dementia. The power of attorney you both wanted so badly. The plan to sell everything in 6 months and disappear. I played one more audio clip. The sound of both of them laughing as they planned my future locked away in a nursing home. Isabel broke down. She fell to her knees on the living room floor, her hands covering her face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? I asked, looking down at her. Sorry you got caught? Because you don't have any real remorse. Leo crossed his arms. You know what's funny, Isabel? While you were poisoning me, I was discovering everything. Every move you made, every lie, and I stayed quiet, waiting, gathering proof. He leaned down, getting to her level. You underestimated me. You thought I was too weak, too sick, too stupid to notice. But I noticed, and I protected my family. Clara approached Julian, who was trying to compose himself against the wall. I've already filed for divorce this morning, and I reported your fraud at the bank. The internal audit has been initiated. You should receive the notice on Monday. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. And what's more, she continued, her voice growing firmer, All the recordings I made of you threatening me, coercing me, and trying to have me committed are with my lawyer and the police. I showed the last document on the screen, a police report filed that afternoon. Charges: psychological violence, attempted unlawful confinement, coercion, document forgery, and fraud. The police will summon you both early Monday, I said. You will give statements. You will face a criminal trial. And in the meantime, I looked at Isabel. My son is requesting a DNA test for Noah. Regardless of the result, he will fight for custody, and he will win. Because no judge will leave a child with a mother involved in an attempted murder. Isabel sobbed loudly. "No, don't take my son." "Your son?" Leo retorted. "You used him as bait, as a tool. Get out." Julian, defeated, grabbed Isabel's arm and pulled her towards the door. "And never come near my family again." The door closed. Absolute silence filled the room. I looked at my 2 children, Leo, trembling with adrenaline, and Clara, finally breathing freely. "It's over," I said, and for the first time in months, that was the truth. It was over. The war was won. Now it was time to rebuild. The following 3 months were a whirlwind, but this time a necessary one, the kind that cleanses, renews, and rebuilds on solid foundations. On the Monday after the dinner, Isabel and Julian were summoned by the police. I saw their faces as they left the station, she with giant sunglasses trying to hide her face, he with his head down, shoulders slumped. Pathetic. The criminal proceedings began quickly. Forgery of documents, attempted aggravated fraud, psychological violence, coercion. For Julian, they added embezzlement and misappropriation for the diversions at the bank. The internal audit found everything Clara had reported and more. Their lawyers tried to make a deal. They proposed financial reparations, community service, a suspended sentence. But I was adamant. No, I told Helen Davis when she called to inform me of the proposal. I want them to answer for everything, completely. I want the law to do its job. It will take longer, Eleanor. It could be draining. I don't care. They almost killed my son. They almost destroyed my daughter. They're not getting off with a slap on the wrist. And they didn't. Isabel was sentenced to 3 years of confinement, converted to house arrest with an ankle monitor. She lost provisional custody of Noah. Leo obtained full legal custody. She could only see her son during supervised visits once a week in a controlled environment. I held Leo on the day of the hearing. My 43-year-old son cried in my arms like a baby. "I did it, Mom. I protected my boy. You did, my love. You were strong when you needed to be." Julian's sentence was worse. 4.5 years in a semi-open prison regime. On top of that, he was fired from the bank for just cause and is civilly liable for reimbursing the embezzled funds. He is legally prohibited from coming within 500 yards of Clara. Her divorce was finalized in record time. 60 days. She didn't want anything from him. No alimony, no division of assets. "I just want distance, Mom. I just want him to disappear from my life." Leo completely stopped the medications. With the guidance of a real cardiologist, he found out his heart was perfectly healthy. The symptoms had been side effects of the drugs Isabel had forced on him. In 6 weeks, he had his energy back. He started playing soccer on Sundays again. He started laughing again. Noah's DNA results arrived in a brown envelope on a Saturday afternoon. Leo opened it with trembling hands, me beside him in the kitchen. He read it, reread it, closed his eyes. "He's not my biological son." His voice was choked. "Does that change anything?" I asked. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "Nothing, Mom, absolutely nothing. He's mine, period." "Then that's all that matters." He began the process of a step-parent adoption. He wants Noah to have only his name on the birth certificate, for the bond to be officially recognized not by blood, but by choice, by true love. Clara blossomed. Without the anxiolytics, without the control, without the constant fear, my daughter re-emerged like a phoenix. In the first few days, she had withdrawal symptoms, tremors, insomnia, rebound anxiety, but we got her serious medical support, intensive therapy, and lots of family support. In 2 months, she was unrecognizable in the best way. She gained 10 pounds. The color returned to her skin, the sparkle to her eyes. She reconnected with her old graphic design clients and set up a home office in what used to be her room here in my house. "Mom, can I stay a while longer?" she asked me one night shyly. "For as long as you want, my daughter. This has always been your home." She moved in for good, turning her old room into a work studio. She bought a new computer with the first paycheck she received and started therapy twice a week. "It's not weakness to move back into your mom's house," she told me one day. "It's a survival strategy. It's a new beginning," I corrected her. "And new beginnings require solid ground." I sold one of the commercial properties, the smaller one on 7th Street with the older structure. I closed the deal for $680,000, a fair market value. I divided the money equally, $340,000 for Leo and $340,000 for Clara. "Mom, you don't have to," Leo started. "Yes, I do. You both need to rebuild. You'll need lawyers to finalize the adoption. Clara will need a new apartment when she feels ready. This is an investment in your future, not charity." They accepted, with tears, but they accepted. Noah goes to child therapy every Tuesday and Thursday. It was difficult at first. He didn't understand why his mother disappeared, why he now lived only with his dad, why he visited her in a strange place with people watching. But Leo explained it in a child's language. "Mommy made some wrong choices and needs to learn to be better. But Daddy is here. Grandma is here. Aunt Clara is here. And we love you more than anything in the world." Today, at 8 years old, Noah is better. He plays, he smiles, he's a kid again. He calls me Invincible Grandma, ever since Leo told him an edited version of how I protected the family from bad people. "Grandma, when I grow up, I want to be strong like you. You already are strong, my prince. You just have to grow up to realize it. As for me, I'm still in my house. The house I designed, that I built, that I defended. I no longer have to feign dementia. I no longer have to be suspicious of every visitor. I no longer have to sleep with one eye open. The family structure cracked, that's true. But cracks can be filled, reinforced, and transformed into scars that tell a story of survival. And we survived. More than that, we won. There's a photo on my nightstand of Richard and me on the day we inaugurated this house. His arms are around my waist. I'm holding the architectural plans, and both of us are smiling as if we'd conquered the world. In a way, we had. I talk to that photo sometimes. I know it sounds like something a crazy old lady would do, but I don't care. Some nights, I need to hear my own voice saying things he would have said if he were here. "Richard, you always told me. Eleanor, build structures that can withstand earthquakes." Well, my love, it passed the test. The house is still standing, and so is the family. 6 months after that fateful dinner, things found a new balance. Not the balance from before. That would never return. But something different. More honest. Stronger, perhaps. Isabel is serving her sentence working as a receptionist at a veterinary clinic. She earns minimum wage and lives in a rented room on the outskirts of town. She wears an ankle monitor that beeps if she leaves the permitted perimeter. Her visits with Noah happen on Saturday mornings at a family resource center, with a social worker present the entire time. At first, my grandson would come back confused and sad. Now he just comes back indifferent. "Grandma," Isabel asked if I miss her. "And do you?" He thought about it. Serious for his age. "Not really. She seems different. Smaller." Smaller? What a perfect word. When you remove the power someone had over you, they really do shrink. Leo doesn't feel hatred. He says it's a waste of energy. "She destroyed her own life, Mom. I don't need to do anything else." The consequences came on their own. The adoption was finalized last month. Noah is now officially only Leo's son. The new birth certificate arrived in the mail, and my son cried holding the paper as if it were gold. Now it's real, Mom. Now no one can question it. It was always real, my son. The paper just confirmed the obvious. Julian is worse off. He serves his sentence in a semi-open regime, sleeping at the penitentiary and working during the day at a partnered wood shop. He still owes the bank over $180,000, which is being compulsorily deducted from his salary for the next 10 years. He tried to call Clara 3 times. She blocked his number. He sent letters. She returned them unopened. Finally, her lawyer got a full restraining order. Any attempt at contact constitutes a violation of a protective measure. I don't feel sorry for him, Mom, Clara told me the other day, having coffee on the porch. I feel sorry for the person I was when I was with him, that faded, medicated, controlled woman. She's the one who deserves my compassion. And now? Who are you now? She smiled. That smile I hadn't seen in years. Someone who's figuring it out. But I know one thing. I'm someone who doesn't accept crumbs disguised as love. My daughter managed to rent a small apartment last month, a 350-square-foot studio. But it's hers. She furnished it with her own money, painted the walls a pale yellow, and filled it with plants. "Isn't it time for you to leave?" I asked when she told me, feigning gruffness. "Missing your space, Mom. Never." I hugged her. "But I know you need yours. I'm still an architect. Not of buildings anymore, but of days." I wake up early, have coffee looking at the garden Richard planted, and walk through the neighborhood. I visit Leo and Noah twice a week. I have lunch with Clara on Sundays. I've relearned something I had forgotten. Family isn't inheritance. It's not assets. It's not a division of property in an Excel spreadsheet. Family is who stays when the storm passes. It's who holds your hand in the dark. It's who cries your pain as if it were their own. It's who fights for you even when you've forgotten how to fight for yourself. Isabel and Julian wanted to belong, but they confused belonging with possessing. They thought love was measured in square feet, in rental values and bank balances. They paid a high price for that confusion. Noah asked me the other day while we were doing a puzzle in the living room, "Grandma, why was Isabel mean?" I paused and looked at that boy with deep eyes and a pure soul. She wasn't mean, my love. She was lost. She got confused about what matters. She thought things were worth more than people. And are they? Never. People are always worth more. Always. He seemed satisfied with the answer and went back to looking for pieces of the puzzle's blue sky. Today I am 69 years old. My hair is whiter. I have a few more wrinkles and a knee that aches when it rains. But I also have something I didn't have a year ago, absolute certainty of who deserves a seat at my table. I've learned that the best architecture isn't of buildings, but of boundaries, of knowing when to build walls and when to open gates, of protecting what matters and letting what only takes up space crumble. Richard was right. I built structures that can withstand earthquakes, and if there's one thing this old woman isn't, it's a fool. I'm an architect. I know exactly where to place every pillar and where to let what no longer provides support collapse. If you've been through a family betrayal by people who wanted to take what you built, or if you know someone in that situation, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Write your city, your state, your country. I want to know where the people are who, like me, learned that dignity is non-negotiable. Like this video if the story touched your heart. Subscribe to the channel to continue following real stories of overcoming, justice, and new beginnings. Because every story of destruction can become a story of reconstruction. You just need a solid foundation and the courage to not let anyone tear down what you spent a lifetime building.